Alright, so in this lesson, we're going to get set up with the perfect photo taking settings. These are part of the tools that you'll need to succeed. So jump on over to your iPhone and open up the camera app. Alright, so first things first, make sure that the flash is set to off. Flash is terrible, it just ruins photos. I've never seen a good photo taken with flash. If you really need that much light, it's best to just move into an area that has better lighting. So if it's too dark, find a better area, because flash is kind of the amateur way of trying to take a good photo, and it never works out. Next, we're going to make sure that HDR is set to auto, which it is. And if you don't see HDR up here, you can go to your settings and just go down to camera and then go to auto HDR down here and just flip that to on. And that'll make sure that whenever you are taking a photo which has a lot of highlights and shadows, it'll switch to HDR. And HDR stands for high dynamic range. Whenever you take a photo with HDR, it actually takes 3 photos in one. The first photo is exposing for the highlights. It wants to make sure that the highlights are properly exposed and not too blown out. But this makes the shadows really dark. The second photo is a neutral photo. It does its best to get a photo in between highlights and shadows that has a decent exposure. And the third photo is exposing for the shadows. So it'll make sure that these shadows are really brought out and highlighted correctly, but this will also show that the highlights are also blown out. But it'll combine all 3 of these into one properly exposed photo with nicely lit highlights and nicely lit shadows. So this is an awesome feature to turn on for your camera. Alright, so let's go back, and we're going to go back to our camera app. And now you won't see HDR because we've turned it on in our settings. So next, we're going to turn off live photo. Live photo takes a 1.5 second video before and after you take a photo. So it ends up forming this kind of 3-second animation video photo hybrid thing. And it's not really conducive to taking good photos. It's just more or less distracting, so I turn it off. Next, make sure that your timer doesn't have anything set, and also do not ever touch the effects button, because that is what professional editing is for in Lightroom, which is also free. So don't touch the effects, we don't need them. Now, next thing we're going to do is turn off this grid. You may or may not have it on already, but we're actually going to turn that off because it's going to get in the way of looking at the jawline on your face or your eyes or whatever you might be putting on camera. I actually recommend turning it on in one of my other courses where you're mainly photographing the places around you, but for the sake of photographing people, we're going to turn it off. So let's go to our settings and go back to camera. And we are going to go to grid and turn that off. And while we're here, we're also going to make sure that our record video settings are set to 4K at 60, or if you don't have 4K, you could do 1080 at 60. But the reason I recommend setting your video settings for a photo course like this is because sometimes it is very useful to set your phone down, maybe in your shoe or against a rock, whatever you can use as a natural tripod, and you can actually turn the video on and start recording. And then you can walk out into frame and actually do some actions like jumping in the air or posing in whichever way that you want to pose. And then you can go back to the video later and you can screenshot frames that you really like and want to use as photos. So the reason I recommend 4K is because it's the highest quality video, so you'll be able to zoom in and crop your photos exactly like you would take them using the regular photo section of your camera app. This is by far one of my favorite things to do using the video tool, because I travel a lot and a lot of the time I just don't have somebody to take a photo of me, so it really comes in handy.